Hey, you listen to Nightwatch and keep doing it, or else I come over there and put my boot all up in your ass.
Oh, I didn't mean to frighten you prematurely. The real chills come later. Now, as they say, look alive, and we'll continue our little tour. And let's all stay together, please.
All around me are familiar faces, worn out places, worn out faces, riding early for their daily races, going nowhere, going nowhere. Nightwatch.
You're listening to Nightwatch, a Jackalope Media production, with your hosts, Todd Sheets, Hugh McClanahan, and Chris Watzbach.
And welcome back to Nightwatch. I'm your host, as always, Todd Sheets, here with Hugh McClanahan.
Oh, yeah.
And Chris Weisbach.
Good evening.
How you guys doing?
We're
Spooky.
Good.
Yeah, the Festival of Fear is underway, and who better to cap off this month-long celebration of fright?
Spectacular.
That's right, the Spooktacular. Than our good buddy and sponsor of Nightwatch and Jackalope Radio with Renegade Arts. I consider one of the premier icons of fright. One of the guys who is carrying on the tradition of the masters. He's become a master. He is right there in the upper echelon of awesome. Everybody, welcome to the show again, Doug Bradley and Alex Finbow. Welcome, guys.
Yay.
Good evening.
Good evening.
You know how I feel about you, Doug. It's kind of scary for you, I think, but
it is starting to get a bit worrying.
Yeah.
If it gets any worse, I'm going to have to put a restraining notice on you, I think.
That's the third time this week.
Another one to add to the wall.
That is awesome.
They just hung up, by the way.
I figure. Yeah. See you later. Click. No, you guys, honestly, Doug, there are the classic actors who I've always looked to as a child: Boris Karloff, Bela Lugosi, Lon Chaney Jr., Christopher Lee, Peter Cushing. The list goes on. There's people who I have idolized since I was very young. I was a Famous Monsters kid. I did all the model kits. I was just into it. And
me too.
See, exactly. And I feel like that's why I think you get it, and that's why I put you in that category with those great actors, because you are just amazing, and it's great that you're doing this and you're continuing the great tradition of classic horror acting, and I just love that, man. Thank you for doing it.
Well, I guess I'm lucky to have the chance to do the thing I love and occasionally get paid for it.
That's right. That's right.
Always a plus.
I don't have it in my hands yet, but I just did a gig here in Pittsburgh as a fundraiser for the Toonseum, which was live readings. So I did about 50 minutes to an hour of live readings of a few stories and a couple of poems and Q&A to follow. And a guy came to speak to me afterwards and said that he was going to drop off at the Toonseum for me a copy of a recording of Bela Lugosi reading The Telltale Heart, which I'd never heard before. Apparently it's a radio recording. I'm not sure how that's going to come across, given Lugosi's accent, but
that'll be exciting.
I'm looking forward to hearing it, certainly.
Yeah, and I hadn't heard that either. There were I know radio programs that all the guys did in the day.
There were thriller, melodramas they used to do
Right.
on the radio all the time in the 40s and 50s. Yeah,
That's why I love Spine Chillers so much, because it's like a throwback in some ways to the classics of radio, but it's also a step forward because the production is amazing and the stories are gripping. And that's why I'm just so proud that you and Alex have been doing this. Alex, Spine Chillers, how is this thing growing? How's it coming along, my friend?
slowly, steadily, but going in the right direction. It's because we are very good at making stuff, and we put our heart and soul into making it. But we are learning how to sell it and promote it. It's not our speciality.
Gotcha.
So, it's every month, more and more people find out about Doug's readings, and Robert and Jeff, and we are starting to see good things happening, bubbling away.
Good. And I hope in some way we're helping with that. We push it everywhere. We're promoting the heck out of it because I truly believe in the project and I love it. And I think this is something that we've been waiting for a long time. And it's just kind of really cool. And I've been trying to tell friends of the show, one of the coolest things you can do is to get a Spine Chiller CD and put it on when you're going to bed. Because, number one, it's hard because you won't sleep. And you hear Doug's voice. You get these visuals that are just amazing. Your imagination can do so much more than special effects artists even in this day and age.
It's funny because it's a cure for insomnia for me.
Wow. Crack. Yeah, well, I tell you what, I guess that would be a way to fall asleep as well, but I got to tell you, you might wake up with some really strange, Chris, you were talking about having hallucinations yesterday from being so tired. You may get them if you listen to that when you go to sleep and actually drift off before it's over.
You look at the popularity of audiobooks these days and the genre and, the technology that's there for people to pretty much listen anytime they want, before bed, whatever, and it's just a perfect opportunity, I think.
It is.
I know from some of the feedback we get on the CDs and the downloads that a lot of people listen to them when they're driving, and I haven't heard of anybody drifting off at the wheel yet. Most people tell me that it keeps them awake because they're shit scared.
Yeah.
I agree, and that's right. It is a great thing to listen to while you drive.
Lots and lots of people have said that to me as well, and lots of, particularly here in the States, a lot of people say to me, my commute is my reading time. I don't have a lot of time to read, so I use the commute to read by default using audiobooks.
That's right, and it does work. And some people, I mean, let's face it, you're on rush hour traffic, you're sitting in traffic for 30, 45 minutes. It really helps. For me, pass the time quickly by listening to something like, what you're talking about here, the Spine Chillers. If you put Spine Chillers in, the thing I like about it is, for myself anyway, I don't know if I'm speaking for you guys over there, but for myself, I get so frustrated sitting still on a highway. It's just frustrating. But when and being in traffic that long, I mean, you're 10 minutes from home, but you're in traffic 35 minutes, it's horrible. But when I listen to Spine Chillers, it's not horrible anymore. You don't even realize you've been in the car that long because you've been entertained thoroughly. So you're kind of like, hey, man, I can do that every day.
Yeah, or people like me that have to drive, 3 hours to get to an account.
It's true.
and then drive back. So it works great.
It does. Yeah, that's the way to do it. See, you guys are inspiring us every day.
Cure for road rage.
That's right.
Here's a whole marketing strategy opening up for us, Alex, I think.
Tired of road rage? Put on Doug Bradley.
That's right.
Too scared to get out the car. I was just going to say, I was talking to somebody on Sunday at the Edmonton Comic and Entertainment Expo who had bought the first 9 discs and he came to pick up the 10th. And he was saying that listening to them, sometimes he gets that feeling there's somebody in the back of the car with him. And he's in his 40s and he's an adult and he knows like what's real and what's not real, but he still suddenly gets that feeling. Listen to the stories that there might be just something waiting for him in the back of the car. I thought it was great.
It is. That is really great. I mean, if you do I used to always do cross country trips with my kids, and they would fall asleep, and so I'd just be driving by myself, and I'd be playing the same music CD over and over because it would just you're trying to keep awake. It's the middle of, if you've ever driven through to Dallas, through the middle of the country, when you're going through Oklahoma, it's just not a whole lot there during that last part of the drive getting to Dallas. And I'm like, oh, please get me there. And I'm trying to stay awake. I really needed Spine Chillers at that time because you guys hadn't put them out yet. But I was like, because cross-country driving at night, I can imagine the creepy feeling because it was already creepy just listening to like King Diamond music and thing. I mean, imagine what it would be like if I was able to listen to Spine Chillers going across country. That would be like
at night.
Yeah. extremely creepy.
That's
2
where
o'clock in the morning.
That's where the whole involuntary loss of bodily fluids comes into play.
Exactly. Well, you guys know what you're doing, that's for sure. And I have to tell you, Doug, I just picked up a movie because I'd read that you were in it. Wrong Turn 5 just came out on Tuesday, and I picked it up. I haven't got to watch it, but yeah, you're in it.
No, I haven't seen it either, but yeah.
That's
scary.
So, but tell us a little bit about it since it just came out Tuesday. I want to be sure people know about it so they can rush out and pick that up at their local Best Buy or wherever they happen to see it.
Sure. Well, it is, as you might guess from the title, the 5th in the Wrong Turn series. In fact, I think it's Wrong Turn 5 Bloodline.
Wow.
Which means I've now been in a movie called Bloodline twice.
Yep, exactly.
Or Bloodlines, I think this is plural. Hellraiser 4 was just the one bloodline. This is the sequence of Wrong Turn movies. If people don't know the Wrong Turn movies, basically centers around these 3 weird, deformed hillbilly cannibals, and again, as the title would suggest, the story always centers around people, usually from the city, who take that wrong turn into the backwoods with hilarious consequences. But there's kind of a Star Wars sequencing thing going on here, because the first 3 movies kind of followed in sequence. Wrong Turn 4 was the prequel.
Wow, okay.
Wrong Turn 5 is the sequel to the prequel. So this is kind of Wrong Turn 2, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
And I play... so in Wrong Turn 4, we established the 3 Stooges, as I took to calling them on set. They were holed up in an abandoned hospital, wreaking their terrible deeds, and were forced out of there. So, in Wrong Turn 5, they've sought shelter with me, and my character is distantly related to them. I am cut from the same cloth as them, backwoodsman, murderous cannibal, and I have apparently, according to the script, been existing in the backwoods of West Virginia for 30 years, successfully undetected, while living off the money and the meat of passing strangers. So they come under my wing. There is also a festival taking place in the area, which is called, I think it's called Mountain Man.
Right.
It's kind of a cross between Coachella and Burning Man is the kind of idea of it. Group of college students on their way to the festival for the weekend, and hey, they take a wrong turn. So that's basically the setup.
It's hard for me to imagine you doing like an inbred hillbilly voice. Was that difficult for you, Doug?
Well, I'll leave you to be the judge of that, Todd. When you get to see the film, I didn't want to just go doohickey redneck on it. So I just went for a kind of deep, dark American voice rather than going full out on the
Do the voice.
Yeah, give us a sample.
Southern thing. I have no idea. I can't remember any lines. We shot it in Bulgaria, in Sofia, in Bulgaria, around March, April this year.
Wow. Sorry. You don't. You bow before the king. That's what you do.
I'm bowing now.
No, I also got excited because I found out that there's a Star Wars connection with you now, Doug, and you did the voice of the Emperor in the.
I did.
Yeah, the Old Republic.
Yes. I have now signed my first pieces of Star Wars fan stuff.
Wow.
Yes. the Sith Emperor, I think.
Yep.
Was the character in the Star Wars video game.
I'm excited.
Knights of the Old Republic.
Yeah.
It was quite a hilarious process. I mean, I think we'll all be familiar with the legendary tales of just how anal retentive Lucasfilms can be. And I got my taste of this. I knew I was doing this. They would not send me a script.
Uh-oh.
So I turn up at a studio in London, and I'm seeing the lines for the first time. But I'm only seeing my lines. There's no suggestion, that it might help if I knew what the overall story was, so I could anchor what's going on in anything. So it's me in the studio in London, sound engineer, and a producer on the line from LA, and we kind of waded through it. And of course, it's full of Star Wars names, which again I'm kind of almost reading blind.
Unbelievable.
That must make it really difficult.
Yeah.
It wasn't easy. I made it clear I thought it was a really dumb way to go about doing things. At least send me a story synopsis and a character breakdown and my lines in advance so I can get a grasp on it. And it was fairly obvious as well that basically all they wanted was a retread of Pinhead. That was it. So that's what they got. As with Wrong Turn 5, I haven't seen it. So, although I have seen a couple of scenes on YouTube, bizarrely.
Of your character?
Yeah, as I think if you put me in the search engine in YouTube, they'll come up. Someone send me a link.
Doing it now.
So I had a look at that, but I'm not really a video game player, so I haven't.
You haven't seen that, yeah?
No.
Yeah. I'm just a Star Wars fan. I have to admit I'm a nerd, and I just really like it that you're at least part of it. I have to admit the creative process is very bizarre on those movies, and it's very frustrating, I'm sure, for an actor. But for us fans, it'll be great because I get like two of my favorite things right together, which is Doug Bradley and Star Wars mixing, which you can't do much better than that, really. I will check out Wrong Turn 5. Hopefully I'll get to watch that later this evening. I just picked it up, and I just haven't had a chance, but I was just so happy and so relieved now to hear, because I was afraid I was going to hear, well, look at them boys over there. I was like, I just don't think I could imagine Doug talking like that. It's terrible.
I could if you wanted me to.
Wow, that was crazy. That was kind of creepy, guys. I think that might have been scarier than Pinhead at this point.
Sort of Alec Guinness meets Jethro from the Beverly Hillbillies.
It is, yes.
Wow. Combination.
That was meant as a compliment.
Yeah, that was a compliment. So, Alex, tell us a little bit about Renegade Arts. What all you got going on over there?
We've got so much going on. It's scary.
That's what I saw.
From our little pub conversation several years ago, where we thought this would be a fun little project, we now seem to have what is the fastest growing comic book company in Canada, because that's where I'm based, which has kind of come as a bit of a surprise. And now it seems to be a race between the audiobook side of what we're doing and the comic book side to see which one's going to grow the fastest.
Wow.
I'm trying to keep up. Which is good. And then the nice thing about this is that everything we're doing seems to be really high quality. And people love it. And we're not in a position like some companies to be thinking, okay, how can we exploit and make as much money as possible out of everything, regardless of whether it's good or not, or even if it should exist in the first place. So we can choose the stories that we all love, and make sure that they get the love and attention to be as high quality as possible before they come out.
Talk a bit about the comic titles, Alex. 1812 is doing really well, isn't it?
Yes. We started off with Alan Grant's Channel Evil, which was our first comic endeavor, and the collected books coming out at Christmas. That was a real learning process for us, but it led us to doing a series of books called Shame, which are painted by an English artist called John Bolton, who's a fantastic fantasy horror painted artist. He works in watercolor and uses no digital at all, and his stuff is amazing.
People will be very familiar, I think, with an image of John's, which went on the cover of one of the original Hellraiser comics on a kind of yellow-orange background of Pinhead holding the box and looking directly upwards.
Yep.
And I've seen it reproduced on posters. It's an image we actually tried to reproduce in Bloodline. I think people will be familiar with that image. That's John Bolton's work.
He's done a lot of amazing artwork in loads of different genres, so I wouldn't doubt it. I can't remember his complete biography off the top of my head, but I'll have a look. But working with John, he's doing 3 books with us on this trilogy. That really kind of put us on the map in terms of people taking us seriously in the comic book realm, because John's so high profile, and an artist of his caliber needs time to be able to work properly, and it means a company has to prove itself to have the patience and also the cash flow to keep going whilst he's creating amazing artwork. And when we produced the first book and it came to market and it was everything everyone was hoping, suddenly people sat up and went, okay, these guys are serious. It's not just a bunch of creative people sitting around dreaming. They can actually produce something. And the second book will be out beginning of next year. And it looks even better. It's more edgier and sexier. And that's led us to the War of 1812 book, which, of course, in America, you guys know nothing about, right?
Yeah, nothing at all.
Well, nobody here knew much about it in Canada, and coming from England, I'd never heard of it before. And I thought I knew that period of history quite well with Napoleon. But it turns out I was wrong. And this book's been great because we spent 3 years putting it together, and it's well on its way now to becoming a Canadian bestseller. So suddenly we've gone from people taking us seriously for being able to produce a high-quality comic book to now having one of the best-selling comic books of the year north of the border. And it is making some inroads in America, but obviously not as much interest down there as there is up here. So
Fill people in on the basic story, Alex, because I was amazed when you first outlined it to me, because again I was absolutely ignorant of it, and it seems extraordinary that people are so unaware of it.
Okay. Remembering we're talking to Americans here, I have to be careful.
Oh, no, I think...
the gist of the story is that several politicians and politically motivated people connected to the American government at the time decided it was worth starting a war. And the war was going to be with Britain, and one of the prizes would have been Canada. Whether to be used as a negotiating tool or whether to be kept as part of the expansion of the United States. So the parallels when I read this to certain things I thought had happened with the way that people like George Bush II and Tony Blair had manipulated their countries into engineering wars for their and certain colleagues' aims seemed rather prevalent. And this war was kind of forgotten for lots of reasons, partly because nothing really changed after it. I mean, Canada was still Canada and America was still America, and Britain carried on doing whatever it was doing. So the politicians and the people that wrote history books didn't really care about it. But if the war had gone a little bit different in either direction, then Canada would have been wiped off the map and would be part of America. And there was a chance that big chunks of America, especially in the Northeast, would have gone back to being part of the British Empire. And this kind of stuff seems fascinating to me that nobody really talks about it, especially when things like the burning of the White House happened during that conflict. Right. I mean, I'd never known anyone had even got into Washington to have a fight since the Revolution. So to hear about that kind of stuff was a big surprise to me. So I thought it was time that we celebrated it, and I'm trying to get the Canadians to have a national burning of the White House Day as a holiday each year. So
We do that every 4 years, and it's coming up here in a couple of weeks, actually.
But I believe it was
At least for now.
the British who had the victory at the Battle of Bladensburg that allowed them to capture and burn Washington, D.C. in the first place. If I remember right, it was the British who, yeah.
But some of those British soldiers then were offered 100 acres of land to settle in Canada and became Canadians. So vicariously, you can say that Canadians were involved in it.
There you
Or
go.
at least-
That's right. That's lots of woods. Chris is happy
I
about
might add that again.
Well, earlier we spoke about Bela Lugosi reading The Telltale Heart, and I think we're going to have a very neat treat here on Nightwatch tonight. We're going to have Doug Bradley reading The Telltale Heart.
I think The Telltale Heart is Poe's masterpiece, but getting to read through stories like The Fall of the House of Usher, is an extraordinary treat and a privilege, really. And Lovecraft stories, the shorter stories. The Outsider is a magnificent story. The long stories, Cthulhu, Rats in the Walls. I mean, tons of them. I don't think I have any one favorite, And then there are stories like The Monkey's Paw by W.W. Jacobs. As far as I can gather, everything else Jacobs wrote was rubbish. And in amongst it, he produced this one story, which is, if there's one classic horror story, it's probably The Monkey's Paw, isn't it?
Yeah.
The Conan Doyle stories, Kipling's They is a big favorite. Not particularly a scary story, but it's a story that gets, or for me anyway, it kind of gets under your skin, stays with you after you've read it. That's a big favorite. But hey, they're all brilliant.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. See there, Hugh?
And Ambrose Bierce. So I've said before at the outset of doing this, I had never heard of Ambrose Bierce. I didn't know him or his work at all. And it was actually a colleague of mine and Alex's, Tony Luke, who was working with us at the time, was very much an important part of putting The Outsider together, which kind of kick-started this whole thing. He lent me a really neat volume, which was basically a collection of Lovecraft's favorite stories by other writers, stories that he'd specifically talked about in his letters. And it included two of Bierce's stories, and they just blew me away. And I am such a fan of his now, both of the man and of the stories. So far ahead of his time, I think, both in the subject matters that he dealt with, and also the way he constructs his stories. He really is like nobody else. So all of his stories have become big favorites of mine as well, actually. If I hadn't, as I seem to have done, talked myself into reading The Telltale Heart, I'd have suggested a short Ambrose Bierce story with maybe the Conqueror Worm to follow it. Oh, God. True. Nervous. Very, very dreadfully nervous I had been and am. But why will you say that I am mad? The disease had sharpened my senses, not destroyed, not dulled them. Above all was the sense of hearing acute. I heard all things in the heaven and in the earth. I heard many things in hell. How, then, am I mad? Hearken, and observe how healthily, how calmly I can tell you the whole story. It is impossible to say how first the idea entered my brain, but once conceived, it haunted me day and night. Object there was none, passion there was none, I loved the old man. He'd never wronged me. He'd never given me insult. For his gold, I had no desire. I think it was his eye. Yes, it was this. He had the eye of a vulture. A pale blue eye with a film over it. Whenever it fell upon me, my blood ran cold, and so, by degrees, very gradually, I made up my mind to take the life of the old man and thus rid myself of the eye forever. Now this is the point. You fancy me mad. Madmen know nothing. But you should have seen me. You should have seen how wisely I proceeded, with what caution, with what foresight, with what dissimulation I went to work. I was never kinder to the old man than during the whole week before I killed him. And every night, about midnight, I turned the latch of his door and opened it, oh, so gently. And then when I had made an opening sufficient for my head, I put in a dark lantern, all closed that no light shone out. And then I thrust in my head. Oh, you would have laughed to see how cunningly I thrust it in. I moved it slowly, very, very slowly, so that I might not disturb the old man's sleep. It took me an hour to place my whole head within the opening, so far that I could see him as he lay upon his bed. Would a madman have been so wise as this? And then, when my head was well in the room, I undid the lantern, cautiously. Oh, so cautiously. Cautiously, for the hinges creaked. I undid it just so much that a single thin ray fell upon the vulture eye. And this I did for 7 long nights, every night, just at midnight. But I found the eye always closed, and so it was impossible to do the work, for it was not the old man who vexed me, but his evil eye. And every morning when the day broke, I went boldly into the chamber and spoke courageously to him, calling him by name in a hearty tone, and inquiring how he had passed the night. So you see, he would have been a very profound old man indeed to suspect that every night, just at 12, I looked in upon him while he slept. I fairly chuckled at the idea, and perhaps he heard me, for he moved on the bed suddenly, as if startled. Now you may think that I drew back, but no. His room was as black as pitch with the thick darkness, for the shutters were close fastened through fear of robbers, and so I knew that he could not see the opening of the door, and I kept on pushing it steadily. I had my head in, and was about to open the lantern when my thumb slipped upon the tin fastening, and the old man sprang up in bed, crying out, "Who's there?" I kept quite still, and said nothing. For a whole hour, I did not move a muscle, and in the meantime, I did not hear him lie down. He was still sitting up in the bed, listening, just as I have done, night after night, hearkening to the death watches in the wall. Presently I heard a slight groan, and I knew it was the groan of mortal terror. It was not a groan of pain or of grief. Oh, no. It was the low, stifled sound that arises from the bottom of the soul when overcharged with awe. I knew the sound well. Many a night, just at midnight, when all the world slept, it has welled up from my own bosom, deepening with its dreadful echo the terrors that distracted me. I say, I knew it well. I knew what the old man felt, and pitied him, although I chuckled at heart. I knew that he had been lying awake ever since the first slight noise when he had turned in the bed. His fears had been ever since growing upon him. He had been trying to fancy them causeless, but could not. He had been saying to himself, "It is nothing but the wind in the chimney. It is only a mouse crossing the floor, or it is merely a cricket which has made a single chirp." Yes, he had been trying to comfort himself with these suppositions, but he had found all in vain. All in vain, because death, in approaching him, had stalked with his black shadow before him and enveloped the victim. And it was the mournful influence of the unperceived shadow that caused him to feel, although he neither saw nor heard, to feel the presence of my head within the room. And when I had waited a long time, very patiently, without hearing him lie down, I resolved to open a very, very little crevice in the lantern. So I opened it. You cannot imagine how stealthily, until, at length, a single dim ray like the thread of the spider shot from out the crevice and fell upon the vulture eye. It was open. Wide open. I grew furious as I gazed upon it. I saw it with perfect distinctness, all a dull blue with a hideous veil over it that chilled the very marrow in my bones. But I could see nothing else of the old man's face or person, for I had directed the ray, as if by instinct, precisely upon the damned spot. Have I not told you that what you mistake for madness is but over-acuteness of the senses? Now, I say, there came to my ears a low, dull, quick sound, such as a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. I knew that sound well, too. It was the beating of the old man's heart. It increased my fury as the beating of a drum stimulates the soldier into courage. Even yet, I refrained and kept still. I scarcely breathed. I held the lantern motionless. I tried how steadily I could maintain the ray upon the eye. Meantime, the hellish tattoo of the heart increased. It grew quicker and quicker and louder every instant. The old man's terror must have been extreme. It grew louder, I say, louder every moment. Do you mark me well? I have told you that I am nervous. So I am. And now, at the dead hour of the night, amid the dreadful silence of that old house, so strange a noise as this excited me to uncontrollable terror. And yet for some minutes longer, I refrained and stood still. But the beating grew louder. I thought the heart must burst. Then now a new anxiety. The sound would be heard by a neighbor. The old man's hour had come. With a loud yell, I threw open the lantern and leaped into the room. He shrieked once only. In an instant, I dragged him to the floor and pulled the heavy bed over him. I then smiled gaily to find the deed so far done. But for many minutes, the heart beat on with a muffled sound. This, however, did not vex me. It would not be heard through the wall. At length, it ceased. The old man was dead. I removed the bed and examined the corpse. Yes, he was stone dead. I placed my hand upon the heart and held it there many minutes. There was no pulsation. He was stone dead. His eye would trouble me no more. If you still think me mad, you will think so no longer when I describe the wise precautions I took for the concealment of the body. The night waned, and I worked hastily, but in silence. First of all, I dismembered the corpse. I cut off the head and the arms and the legs. I then took up 3 planks from the flooring of the chamber and deposited all between the scantlings. I then replaced the boards, so cleverly, so cunningly, that no human eye, not even his, could have detected anything wrong. There was nothing to wash out, no stain of any kind, no blood spot whatever. I had been too wary for that. A tub had caught all. And when I had made an end of these labours, it was 4 o'clock, still dark as midnight. As the bells sounded the hour, there came a knocking at the street door. I went down to open it with a light heart, for what had I now to fear? There entered 3 men who introduced themselves with perfect suavity as officers of the police. A shriek had been heard by a neighbour during the night. Suspicion of foul play had been aroused, information had been lodged at the police office, and they, the officers, had been deputed to search the premises. I smiled, For what had I to fear? I bade the gentleman welcome. The shriek, I said, was my own, in a dream. The old man I mentioned was absent, in the country. I took my visitors all over the house. I bade them search well. I led them, at length, to his chamber. I showed them his treasures, secure, undisturbed. In the enthusiasm of my confidence, I brought chairs into the room and desired them here to rest from their fatigues, while I myself, in the wild audacity of my perfect triumph, placed my own seat upon the very spot beneath which reposed the corpse of the victim. The officers were satisfied. My manner had convinced them. I was singularly at ease. They sat, and while I answered cheerily, they chatted of familiar things. But ere long, I felt myself getting pale and wished them gone. My head ached, and I fancied a ringing in my ears. But still they sat, still chatted. The ringing became more distinct. It continued and became more distinct. I talked more freely to get rid of the feeling, but it continued and gained definiteness until at length I found that the noise was not within my ears. No doubt I grew very pale, but I talked more fluently and with a heightened voice, and yet the sound increased. And what could I do? It was a low, dull, quick sound, much such a sound as a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. I gasped for breath, and yet the officers heard it not. I talked more quickly, more vehemently, but the noise steadily increased. I arose and argued about trifles in a high key and with violent gesticulations, but the noise steadily increased. Why would they not be gone? I paced the floor to and fro with heavy strides, as if excited to fury by the observations of the men, but the noise steadily increased. Oh, God, what could I do? I foamed, I raved, I swore, I swung the chair upon which I had been sitting and grated it upon the boards, but the noise arose over all and continually increased. It grew louder, 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 and still the men chatted pleasantly and smiled. Was it possible they heard not? Almighty God! No, they heard. They suspected. They knew. They were making a mockery of my horror. This I thought, and this I think. But anything was better than this agony. Anything was more tolerable than this derision. I could bear those hypocritical smiles no longer. I felt that I must scream or die. And now, again, hark! Louder, 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 louder. Villains, I shrieked, dissemble no more. I admit the deed. Tear up the planks. Here. It is the beating of his hideous heart.
My God. Oh my God, that was unbelievable. Wow. Doug Bradley, master of Poe here, man. Listen to this. This is unbelievable. The icon of fright. The main man. I had chills up and down my spine the entire time. Amanda's eyes were bugging out of her head in there. That was amazing. Doug, amazing job.
I had chills running up down my spine too, but I think I'm sitting too close to the air conditioning.
That's awesome. Wow. I mean, Alex, it's got to be an honor, man, to be able to set and I mean, I know it's work as well, but it's such a pleasure to be able to create these stories with Doug, is it not?
It is. It's been a revelation to me because I realized I have rather large gaps in my knowledge of a lot of these authors and stories. So not only have I been learning throughout this process, but I've had the great pleasure of working with Doug and listening to his masterful tellings of these tales.
Well, I urge... Oh, my God, I agree. I urge everybody, all of our friends listening, rush out. This is just a sample. Rush out and grab yourself the Spine Chillers. If you think this was good, amplify that by like 30 times. Awesomeness. And you'll see a little bit of what's going on with the Spine Chillers. So, guys, wow, what a perfect treat.
I would hate this to turn into a mutual backslapping session, but I have to give credit back to Alex, because he sat on the other side of the glass through all the hours of me flapping my lips, following along word for word, and has held the whole thing together, not just the recordings themselves, but organizing the music and the whole package. I think it's worth mentioning because it kind of came back into focus for me, because we got a really nice piece of customer reaction back to Renegade just in the last week or so. The artwork that Dan Woods has produced, not just on the covers of the CDs, but he's produced a kind of pulp fiction cover piece of artwork for every single title that we've recorded, which you might know the precise number, Alex. God knows. What is it? Must be running up to 80, 90 something.
Where are
somewhere in that region, I guess.
84.
There you go. And every single one of those poems and stories has its own piece of artwork, which Dan Woods has created. And so holding all that together, producing the CDs, coordinating with the various different people who've produced the music and the soundscapes to go behind the stories as well. And that, although I was involved in the music process very much, holding the whole thing together and bringing it through as we are about to come through to fruition with 13 complete volumes, all that credit goes to Alex.
For real. Yeah, for real.
It's an amazing thing.
It is.
There's the little comic strip as well, which I also think gets lost in the mix, and it was nice that we were putting these out with the volumes early on, and then we stopped doing it, I guess, through expense. Ben Clark. Great, yeah. Just great little idea that Poe, Lovecraft, and Bierce are living together in a boarding house and it's just, I mean, each story is only like 9 panels, and it's just a little tale of Mrs. Parkinson, yes, and she's quite the stickler as a boarding house landlady would go, and Poe and Bierce and Lovecraft get on each other's nerves in various ways, and they're that short, like 9 panels. And very funny, and although we stopped putting them out with the CDs, they continued on the Renegade website. Still continuing, right?
Yes.
Awesome.
So how many of those have?
101 so far.
Wow.
101.
Wow.
Like Dalmatians and spine chillers. Wow.
That's great.
When we have the 10 volumes out now, 11, 12, and 13. To follow shortly, and what we plan to do then is put all 13 volumes out as a box set. And we were talking because actually this fan reaction kind of made me think it'd be a good thing to do, would be to put out like a booklet of Dan's artwork and a booklet of the Spine Chiller series. I'd like to see Dan's work as kind of limited edition prints as well, because I think it's that good. That's what will happen next with Spine Chillers, and there are plans for things beyond that.
Yes.
I don't want to commit us to anything, and you'll be sitting up there in Canada, going, "Oh my God, he just committed us to doing that, did he?"
Quite all right.
Well, I mean, these are only plans, There are a lot of reasons why they won't happen, like if we don't make enough money, which is down to people buying the things in the first place. But we talked then about putting author collections together, because although we've included a Lovecraft, a Poe, and a Bierce on just about every volume, we've by no means been comprehensive of all of them. There are Lovecraft stories that are missing. There are Poe stories that are missing. There are beer stories that are missing. So we had thought about putting separate author collections and making those complete separate author collections. Again, using the idea of guest readers as well. And we could change things around a bit. For example, when Robert came on board initially, I gave him a choice of Poe stories to read, and he wanted to read Hop Frog. And I had to say, tough buddy, I already did that one. So he didn't do that. But and purely because of time constraints, in the end, Robert did one of Poe's poems for us, but not a story. So I'd certainly like to go back and put that right, if we're able to.
Oh yeah.
And then there are longer stories that would require multiple voices, and so we couldn't include those on Spine Chillers, and that would be a possible future idea. And there were women's stories. I mean, this is exclusively a male collection, but again, in the process of doing it, there were some women's stories that started to spring up. So that would be a possible future idea as well.
And that's the thing for those of us that love this kind of thing all year round, that kind of celebrate Halloween no matter what the holiday. This is like absolutely the perfect gift for people like ourselves. So that's kind of a cool thing. Man, you guys have just made me the happiest guy. I don't know what to say other than, wow, I am in awe of the incredible awesomeness of this evening.
Well, you're easily pleased.
Man, now I don't know if everyone would agree with you on that, but I tell you what, when it comes to you guys, I certainly am. You guys are just, you're the real deal, and I want to thank you for being sponsors of Nightwatch, and in turn, we're going to make you very proud. Thank you so much for the incredible art that you give to the world, and the imagination and the passion that you bring to everything you do, and just thanks for being you, and for caring enough about us to do it right.
Well, thanks to you for your support as well, Todd. Thank you.
Oh, man, you've got it. You've got us. You know, you're part of the family, both of you, and anytime you need us, we are here.
Okay, well, I've got some snow on my drive, which needs clearing. If you could.
Snow?
You guys could give the website out. We can edit it in.
Yeah. Let's for sure. Let's give out that website so we can make sure all of our friends can rush right out and grab these.
You serious? It's already snowing up there?
It probably never stopped.
It
is Canada.
It is Canada.
All.
Blame Canada.
The web address, Doug. You do the web address.
The web address. Well, two websites. Was nearly 80 degrees in Pittsburgh here today, by the way. Blue skies, glorious sunshine.
That's
lovely.
Right. That's right.
In fact, I'm sitting here in shorts and a t-shirt without the heating on. How about that? My website is pretty easy. It is DougBradley.com. And you'll also find me on Facebook. There's a Doug Bradley fan page there. And the Renegade website is renegadeartsentertainment.com.
Well, thank you guys very much. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Doug. Thank you for coming out and sharing time. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Look forward to
you're welcome. Pleasure.
You guys enjoy the rest of your evening.
Good night.
Thank you.
You too.
All right.
Good talking to you all.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Bye-bye. Wow, guys. I mean, when he started reading that Telltale Heart, I don't know about you, but it was
You
just...
lost it.
Yeah, we were just like... It was like... There was no way around it. It was unbelievable. You could hear the angels
Such
sing.
a natural. I mean, it's just...
Yeah.
He just reads and you're just mesmerized.
It's true. That's why I said I'd give him the damn phone book or a cookbook or whatever. It'd just be like, I never thought s'mores could be this good.
Yeah, Amanda's back there sweating.
I know. It's crazy. She's like having a heck of a time. Very nice. Very nice. Man.
You hear that thump, thump, thump?
Well, yeah, that's
Thump,
right.
thump.
Thump, thump. Guys, what an incredible evening here on Nightwatch. The Festival of Fear has come to a close.
Oh.
The spectacular is over.
But what a wonderful time we had. Really.
Oh, gee.
What would we do, man, without it? It was just a fantastic, wonderful job, Amanda, this month. Good job.
Thank you
Good
very
job.
much.
But I'll
Very
have
much.
to sleep too.
We had such an amazing job. Honestly, it has been what an incredible season this year, guys. I survived the nightmare of almost dying. I've had a wonderful holiday. Great Halloween. I've made it another Halloween. And all of those great friends of ours worldwide, thank you so much for sharing your lives and your Halloween with us. Without you, there'd be no reason to do it. Thanks to our affiliates for allowing our friends to hear us every week. That's a wonderful gift that we appreciate very much. And wow, another Halloween, guys. Oyasumi Nasai. Nightwatch is a production of Jackalope Media in association with Jackalope Radio, with your host Todd Sheets and co-hosts Hugh McClanahan and Chris Weisbach, featuring voice work from September Day. Also with Amanda H. and Audrey Q, associate producers.
All around me are familiar faces, worn out places, worn out faces, bright and early for their daily races, going nowhere, going nowhere. Their tears are filling up their glasses, no expression, no expression. Hide my head, I wanna drown my sorrow. No tomorrow, no tomorrow. And I find it kinda funny, I find it kinda sad. The dreams in which I'm dying are the best I've ever had. I find it hard to tell you, I find it hard to take. When people run in circles, it's a very, very mad world. Mad world. Children waiting for the day they feel good. Happy birthday, happy birthday. And to feel the way that every child should sit and listen, sit and listen. Went to school and I was very nervous. No one knew me, no one knew me. Hello teacher, tell me what's my lesson. Look right through me, look right through me. And I find it kinda funny, I find it kinda sad. The dreams in which I'm dying are the best I've ever had. I find it hard to tell you, I find it hard to take. When people run in circles, it's a very, very mad world. Mad world. Enlarging your world. Mad
You can also listen to Nightwatch on the following incredible radio stations: World Talk Radio, Livid Radio, Hawking Radio, Planet Tokyo, Sessions Radio, Power 3201, Z106 FM, Haunted Voices Radio, K94 Rocks, Glue 92, Anomaly Radio, Mystic Age Radio, 96.3 Shane FM, Flash FM, Nomad Radio Network, Yapster FM, My Retro Rock Radio, Double X Radio, 1611 AM, Australia, KBMA, Sports and Entertainment Radio, Robin Valley Community Radio, Radio Crackle, Planet Paranormal, The Black Vault Radio Network, Radio Free Bob, KCOR, WCRP AM, 1620, Rock and Talk Radio, The Point 99.1 FM, Extreme Indie Radio, Omnicron Radio, WPAZ 1370, Blast Podcast, KJO 97.3 FM, Indy 104 FM O Radio, WDSP 101.9 Fox FM, Ghost Village, Switchpod, Pure Country, Headcase Radio, Slack and Bracken Radio, Future World, Red Finger Radio, Catnip Radio, Scuttlebutt, The Butt at radio.thebutt.net, BNRX Internet Radio for the Extreme, KCIA at kcia1.com, Extreme Radio Tampa, Ryukin Radio, X100, SRN1, the 1KX Network, KJAG Radio, Random Radio, Riff Raff Radio, Exile Radio, WOQ AM Radio, FCN Radio, Gray Point, Brand Name Radio, CKDU FM, Leaf Pile Radio, Rocktown Radio, Bizu Homegrown Radio, WWRW, the Worldwide Radio Web, The Dust at www.onthedust.com, Radio Vox, Atlantis 102, Land's Edge Radio, Mix 94.5 FM, 91.5 FM, Ghost Radio, Jet City Radio, Hits 99.9, Extreme Radio 1077, Ghost Radio X, The Beat, Shadows of the Night, East Hill Radio, Hot 97.7 FM, 91.5 FM BVIR, Bearcast Radio, Kudia Radio, World Talk Radio, Surge Radio Network, Radio End, Dragonflight Radio, Beefy Radio, K94 Rocks, Anomaly Radio, Power 3201, and Independent International Radio, Lips 106 FM, Dragonflight Designs Radio, Indie X Radio, The Free Constitution Network, WOQ AM 1690, The Mix 94.5, AM Stereo 930, Radio Enigma, Steel City Radio. If you're an affiliate and your name is not on this list, send me an email and I'll add it as soon as possible. Remember to check out all these great stations for their own days and showtimes for Nightwatch. And don't forget, you can listen to Nightwatch anytime you want to by going to the audio chamber at www.nightwatchradio.com and downloading your favorite episodes for your own personal paranormal pleasure. And as always, you can hear Nightwatch live every Tuesday night right here at 9 p.m. Central on jackaloperadio.com.